who do want to benefit, who do want to listen in the musalla, and let the place be quiet so inshallah all of us can benefit. Without further ado, I would like to call our keynote speaker, Sheikh Mufti Hussain Kamani, Damat Barakatuhu. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless his life with the goodness of this world as well as the akhirah. Ameen.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على سيد الرسل وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى آله الأزكياء وأصحابه الأتقياء أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم فإن تولوا فقل حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم صدق الله العظيم. This evening is dedicated to learning about the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's moments like these that we will cherish the most in the hereafter. You have to remember that each moment of your life leads to a greater moment. And the greatest moment that a human being will experience on the face of this earth is the last moment. That's what the Prophet ﷺ here, he mentions this in a narration, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالْخَوَاتِيمِ, that actions are based off of their end. It's all about that last moment in life. The question is, for you and I, what does that last moment look like? You know, there's a famous dua that Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu used to make. He would say, Allahumma ja'al khayra umri akhirahu. Oh Allah, make the best part of my life the last day. That needs to be the best part. Because there are so many people who talk about yesterday. You know, 2 years ago I was a great man. And 5 years ago I was the one who gave us so much time for the deen. And 10 years ago I was a regular to the masjid. And I was so particular on reading the Quran. And I was the one who used to teach hadith and teach this and teach that. Everyone talks about yesterday. But the focus shouldn't only be on yesterday. Yesterday is something you could be happy over. But the ultimate goal of an individual needs to be on tomorrow. And it needs to be about what's going to happen to me the last moment of my life. You know, one of my teachers, who I had the intention of studying from, unfortunately I didn't get a chance to study from him directly, but by virtue of studying from his children and also from other students of his, I also took the barakah of his knowledge. He was actually the reason why I wanted to go study in England. When I was memorizing my Quran in New York, my teacher said to me that I would like for you to go and study hadith with my teacher. And I said, hey, that would be an awesome idea, let's do it. So I told my dad, I'm going to England. He's like, no, you're not. I said, Dad, no, I really got to go to England. He said, why? I said, my teacher's from there. And that would be the most awesomest thing for me to say, that I studied by the same person who taught my teacher hadith. By the time I convinced my father and I came to England, he had already passed away. Shaykh Islam al-Haq, I missed him. So we were sitting in class one day, and it was known that Shaykh Islam al-Haq was a legend. This man had taught hadith for maybe the greater portion of his life. So one day we were in class and we asked our teacher, his son Sheikh Diya al-Haq and Sheikh Nur al-Haq, they were both our teachers. We asked them that, Sheikh, tell us the story of your father. You know, he's a legend, tell us about him. So he said, you know, my father, he spent 60 years of his life, morning till evening, repeating one statement, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That was his 9 till 4. You know, his job was drawing the image of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he said that what happened was that my father spent his entire life. Then one year came, my father said to us, obviously they're all now married, they're older, they have their kids as well. He said to us, let's all go for one big umrah. So they said, okay, they all got ready, they prepared themselves, and they went on a journey for umrah in the month of Ramadan. They spent the first 20 days in Makkah Mukarramah. When the last 10 days came, they went to Medina Munawwarah. And Sheikh Nur al-Haq, who told us the story, he said that one night after Isha Salah, we were waiting in the hotel room for our father to come so we can have a dinner together. And while we were waiting, we noticed that our father wasn't there. So we started calling him, looking around for him. In those days, they didn't have phones, but they were just trying to build connection with him. When they failed and they waited for him, he came later in the evening, late at night, maybe around midnight or something. When he came, they asked him, where did you go? He said, after Taraweeh prayer, my heart desired that I gave a salam to the Prophet ﷺ. So I went to give a salam, and when I stood there, no one was there. So I just stood there until they asked me to leave, an hour or two. And he said to his kids, let's eat right now. So they sat together, they all ate. After eating together, he told his son, Nur al-Haq, who was our teacher, Sheikh Nur al-Haq, come with me. He took his son by the hand inside the private room, and he said, let's pray salah together. Sheikh Nur al-Haq said, I started praying tahajjud salah with my father, and we were praying tahajjud salah. My father went into sajda and he never got up again. That was it. I mean, I want you to really think about this. The man's passing away after doing Umrah in Ramadan, which is like Hajj, as we know the virtue. He's in Medina Munawwara, the 26th or 27th night, I don't remember the exact date, but in the last 10 days for sure. After conveying his salam to the Prophet ﷺ, in the Tahajjud Salah by the side of his own son, and the man goes into sajda and never wakes up again. And it makes you wonder, wow, what did a guy have to do to get that sort of an honor? I was reading a famous biographical work on the narrators of Hadith, Siyar A'lam al-Nubala by Imam Dhahabi. And in there, under the entry of Abu Zur'a al-Razi, Abu Zur'a al-Razi was a famous scholar of Hadith. He's a contemporary of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. Imam Bukhari and Abu Zur'a al-Razi were, if you want to say, buddies, okay? Imam Muslim rahmatullahi alayhi, on the other hand, was a generation younger than them. So Imam Muslim rahmatullahi alayhi, when he wrote his Sahih Muslim, before publicly announcing it, he took the book to Abu Zur'a al-Razi and said to him, I would like for you to verify its narrators. Abu Zur'a al-Razi wasn't necessarily the man of matan, he was more of a man of sanad. So he wasn't known for knowing the text and its understanding and its commentary. Rather, he was known for having to memory the people who narrated hadith. He was like a Google search. You would put the name inside and bam, he'd tell you everything about that person. So Imam Muslim said, I read the whole Sahih Muslim to Abu Zur'a al-Razi, and at the end of it, Abu Zur'a al-Razi said to me, there are 10 narrations in here which are not suitable for you to have in your book, remove them. And Imam Muslim removed those 10 narrations. And the reason why I shared this part with you is so you understand how great of a giant Abu Zur'a al-Razi was. Now, Dhahabi says that when Abu Zur'a al-Razi's death came, when his last moments of life came, I mean, it was a very sad moment. Such a great scholar passing away, leaving the world. They all gathered around. People were sitting in the streets making dua for him. Those who were inside the house were only the greatest students. The scholars of the community were allowed to sit inside the house. Everyone else was outside making dua. The family and scholars were inside. Now, two of his students were there. One was by the name of Abu Hatim al-Razi, and the second one was by the name of Muhammad bin Muslim. The both of them sat there together and they said, our sheikh's passing away. What should we do for him? What's one last thing we can do? So someone in the crowd suggested that maybe we should read the kalima for him, talqeen. When a person passes away, you very softly encourage them to say La ilaha illallah. Not instruct them, you encourage them very softly by reading it by their side and with the hope that they will read the shahada. And then when they read the shahada, you go silent until that person passes away. So that the last statement of their life is shahada. Because there's a special virtue for that. I'll come to that in a moment. So Muhammad the Muslim said, how can I tell a person to say La ilaha illallah on his deathbed, and that guy is the one who taught me how to say La ilaha illallah? That's a little disrespectful. So Abu Hatim al-Razi said, well, that's a fair point. The guy did teach us how to say La ilaha illallah. How are we going to tell him to say it? So they said, what should we do? So one of them suggested, you know what? Let's read hadith for him. He used to love reading hadith. Let's make the last moment of his life a hadith. So one of them started, he said, Haddathani Dhahak bin Makhlad. That I heard the hadith from Dhahak bin Makhlad. The person next to him said, Ana Abdul Hamid bin Ja'far. And I heard this hadith from Abdul Hamid bin Ja'far. An Salih, who heard the hadith from Salih. An Kathir bin Murrah, who heard the hadith from Kathir bin Murrah. And Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who heard the hadith from Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Each person says one narrator's name at a time. Now when it comes after Mu'adh ibn Jabal, whose name is next in the line, by the way? The Prophet's, right? So when it came time for them to say the Prophet's name, Abu Zur'a al-Razi, who was lying down, maybe 30 seconds left to live in the world, he took his hand and he thumped it. And he said to them, Ajlisuni, sit me up one last time. They sat him up. And he said, Haddathani Dhahak bin Makhlad, and Abdul Hamid bin Ja'far, and Salih, and Kathir bin Murrah, and Mu'adh ibn Jabal. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من كان آخر كلامه لا إله إلا الله. He read half of the hadith and he passed away. And for those of you who are not aware of what he just read, honestly, if you understood what he just said right now, you probably felt a shiver go down your spine. And the part of the hadith he read, the translation is, whoever's last utterance, whoever's last statement before death is La ilaha illallah. What's his last statement, by the way? He left. And the remaining part of the hadith, Dakhal al-Jannah. That person will go to paradise. I mean, there are so many narrations of this sort that people dying in the most beautiful manner. You know how when you play WWE or when you play FIFA, you get to choose your player, you get to design their hair, their height, their build, their skin tone. It's like these people sat in front of a screen and designed their death. You know what, I'll take this collection, I'll take this right here. I'll select this part right here, I'll select this part. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored them. And they were honored because they made a tremendous sacrifice during their lifetime. You know, something that people fear and dislike even talking about. If you go in society, you go to an airport or you go to a coffee shop or you go to work or you go to the gym and you talk about death, people will get upset with you because that's a taboo discussion. We don't like talking about death. We love enjoying the negligence of death. We like living in our falsified world. But when people talk about realities like death, you know, outside people feel uncomfortable because why are you talking to me about something that bothers me so much? But these were people who were looking forward to that moment because they knew what they had done in the world. Their Allah would not disappoint them at the time of their transition from this world. Because every moment of this world leads to a greater moment. And the greatest moment that this world has to offer is the time of death. Because a person, the way they die will be the way that they will be resurrected, and that will then determine where they go in the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ summarized this equation for us by saying, كَمَا تَحْيَوْنَ تَمُوتُونَ وَكَمَا تَمُوتُونَ تُحْشَرُونَ. The way you live your life is the way you'll die. And the way you'll die is the way you'll be resurrected on the Day of Judgment. So on that base and on that premise, I have a question for every one of us sitting here. This is a very real question. You know, if we were to judge ourselves and ask ourselves, what place does the Prophet hold in our heart? What place does the Prophet even occupy in our heart? What does the Prophet even mean to me? What does the name Muhammad even mean to me? When I say that name, what comes to my mind? What's the reality behind this? You know, many of us, unfortunately, will be hollow from within because that name means nothing more than maybe a statement that we've heard in the adhan. Or maybe someone got up and gave a lecture about him, or people quoted some statements from him that we heard on the Jummah khutbah. But what does that person even mean to us? And this is one of the greatest tragedies the Ummah has faced, is that we have become unaware of our own legacy. We've become unaware of who we even are, where we belong. We've lost the pathway to our origins. And because the world is shaming us on the media, and people are saying how Muslims suck so badly, and how we're terrorists, and how we're messed up people, and how we're this, that, and the other, we've bought into the agenda. We actually believe it now. You know, Muslims believe that this is all a big fairy tale. You know, this whole idea of Muslims and their tradition and what we have to say, and our arguments and our political systems and our systems of family and social systems, all of this, we believe it's all a huge fairy tale. Because we've lost connection with our own tradition. Someone came to a famous scholar from the subcontinent. His name was Sheikh Ashraf Ali Thanvi rahmatullahi alayhi. Someone came and asked him a question. He said to him, Sheikh, how do I learn to enjoy my prostration? When I go into sajda, how do I really enjoy it? You know, we talk about people going into prostration and just being on another level of spirituality, bawling their eyes out with tears, connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he asked this question. He said, how do I enjoy spirituality when I prostrate in front of my Lord? And Sheikh Ashraf Ali Thanvi rahmatullahi alayhi, he explained to him a very interesting formula of spirituality. He said to him, before ibadah becomes ibadah, it must be preceded by muhabba. And before muhabba becomes muhabba, it must be preceded by ma'rifah. This is the equation. If you don't know someone, you can't love them. If you can't love them, you can't worship or follow them. If you don't love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, your religion will always be a burden on you. And if you ever find a pathway to run from that religion, you will take it. If someone says to you at a dinner table that Islam and Hadith are all fabrications, you'll say, hey, sounds right. I've been trying to get away from this religion for a while because it's messed up my life and makes me do things that I don't want to do. And if you're telling me it's all fabricated, I'm with you on this one. I'm sold. Okay? You're telling me that my religion, the Quran isn't supported properly and it isn't authenticated, I'm sold. People find the most pettiest reasons to run from their religion when the reality is that the only thing they're running from is themselves. We're not running from anything. We're running from a realization of ourselves that we have failed in learning our own tradition. And a nation that's unaware of their tradition will never have a way to go back and connect back to their origins. So as Muslims, we have to realize the first thing we need to do is go back and make ourselves familiar with what the Quran in the life of the Prophet ﷺ is even about. Now, that leads me to my second point. I was once at a dinner with a group of young guys. We were sitting together talking, chatting, and over the dinner, one of the young guys, he was talking about a particular sportsman, how this particular player had dressed in a particular game and how he, how many points he scored and blah, blah, blah. I'm not really into sports. So after a little while, when I got bored of hearing these guys, I said to these guys, hey man, you guys know so much about this athlete. How much do you know about your prophet? What did your prophet even look like? You know, one of those young guys, when he had the audacity to say to me, he said to me that we don't have anything in our narrations about the looks of the prophet, and whatever is there, it's weak in narrations. Did you guys hear that? I'm not sure if that sounded crazy to you, but to me, I wanted to choke the guy, right? And I kid you not, I was really frustrated. And for those of you who attended last night's lecture, after meeting that person, I coined a term for him. I said to him, brother, you suffer from a very interesting disease. It's called jahl murakkab, compound ignorance. You're ignorant of your ignorance. You're really lost in life. You're screwed up, I'm sorry. So one thing is a person's ignorant. They don't know. I don't know. Do you know this? I don't know. That's okay. But the other thing is that I don't know, and I'm not aware of me not knowing. If that guy said to me that I don't know, I would have said, good job. Okay, here's a lecture, go listen to it. Here's a book, go read it. Here's a class, go take it. But on the other hand, the guy is acting like a smarty pants in front of me, and he's saying that, oh, you know what? It doesn't exist, like as if I studied, and I'm really hardcore, mashallah, and it's not there. And whatever I did find, I'm so smart, I did further research, and I found out it's all weak. And I said to this guy, you are a fool. Because the one thing we Muslims can claim that no other tradition in the world could ever claim is the authenticity of our tradition. And I'm not kidding you. Go to any other religion, go to any other civilization, go to any other tradition, and ask them if they have chains of narrations that are as sophisticated as the Muslims have developed to preserve their tradition. Unfound, unprecedented. And for those people who might say, hey, you know what, American history is somewhat preserved, I tell those people, you know what, if you want to sit on the table with the big boys, first preserve your tradition for a millennium, then come to us. 200-300 years doesn't count. You're still in the juniors leagues. The Muslims have preserved their tradition for how many years did I say? 14. We're almost at 1.5 millennium right here. That's a huge thing. We shouldn't be shy of ourselves. We should actually say, hey, you know what? Sup. What's your problem? You got a problem with me? Why don't you talk to me and let's compare our traditions? And this isn't to pay polemics here where you point a finger at that person, this person points a finger at you, but it's something to take pride in. I'll give you a little exercise, okay? Other than the Prophet Muhammad, listen carefully, you all have to do something, okay? Other than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want you to think of a name of a prophet in your mind. Are you thinking of it? Yes? Now, here's the catch. The prophet's name that you're thinking of, that person's father cannot be a prophet. Are you guys with me? Think of a prophet whose father is not a prophet, and they can't be Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Does everyone have a name in their mind? Okay, which one do you have? What's his grandfather's name? Okay, good. If you answered yes or no, I'd have a problem. You shouldn't know. Nobody should know. Okay? Anyone else have another name in their mind? Musa alayhi salam. What was his grandfather's name? What was Dawood alayhi salam's father's name? How about Salih alayhi salam? Hud alayhi salam? Right? I mean, the point that I'm trying to build here is that Allah didn't promise to preserve those traditions, therefore they don't exist. When it comes to the Prophet ﷺ, Allah preserved everything. When we were studying Tirmidhi, I recall very clearly our teacher in the class, he read some poetry which summarized the name of the 6 kids that urinated in the lap of the Prophet ﷺ. And I was like, what? Someone remembered the names of the kids that took a wee in the Prophet's lap? That's some detail right there. I mean, these people were really trying to preserve everything about the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ's lineage, every aspect of his life was important and preserved. That's why the speaker before me was talking about his birth. I mean, so much detail of this happened, and this poetry, and this narration, and this historian, and this is how it all the puzzle pieces pieced together. I mean, that's fascinating. That's so amazing. The Prophet ﷺ talks about his own lineage, and he says to the companions, "Kulluna min nikah la min sifah." Every one of my forefathers was born inside marriage. No one was ever born outside wedlock. No one was ever born through an illicit relationship or zina. Every one of my forefathers was born through a legitimate marriage. Then after that, the Prophet ﷺ said in the narration, Ana Muhammad. My name is Muhammad. His father's name was Abdullah. His father's name was Abdul Muttalib. His father's name was Hashim bin Abd Manaf bin Qusay bin Kilab bin Murrah bin Ka'b bin Lu'ay bin Ghalib bin Fihr bin Malik bin Nadr bin Kinana bin Khuzaymah bin Mudrika bin Ilyas bin Nazar bin Ma'adi bin Adnan. And before you decide to throw the da'if card, Sahih al-Bukhari, relax. Okay? This whole overthrowing the da'if card all the time, that it's weak, put yourself in check. I mean, we have over 20 of the forefathers of the Prophet's name in an absolutely authentic narration, and we're unaware of it. And every part of the Prophet's life was important, because if it wasn't important, then why was Imam Bukhari wasting his time collecting this narration? He should have said, you know what, this information is of no good. Let's just throw it inside the cabinet on the side, so whoever finds it one day will find it there. And every part of the Prophet's life was significant. And I asked these young guys a question then. I asked them, what did your messenger look like? And those guys were lost for words. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you your first lesson today of what the Prophet looked like. The Prophet ﷺ was migrating from Mecca to Medina. During the migration, his companion was Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. While they were traveling through the deserts, the Prophet was hungry. He said to his companion Abu Bakr that I'm really hungry. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, O Messenger of Allah, I got this. He's looking for some place to feed the Prophet from. He finds some animals there. He approaches the owner of the animals, it was a lady, and he says to her, can we take some milk from your animals? She says, the animals are dry, there's nothing in them. Anything you take, it's yours. He brings the goat, the animal, to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, takes his blessed hand and wipes it on the side of the animal's stomach. And milk begins to gush. The lady, her eyes popped open. She's like, what is going on? OMG. So much milk coming out. The Prophet fills up a bowl. Before he drinks it himself, he notices that, if he's hungry, imagine how hungry the lady must be. And chivalry never died during the Prophet's life, right? He is a manifestation of chivalry. The Prophet takes the bowl and says, ladies first. This lady, Ma'bad, she drinks up. Then after that, everyone in the gathering drinks. At the end, the Prophet drinks. After the Prophet drinks, he milks another bowl, gives it to her, and says to her, when your husband comes in the evening, he might be a little hungry too. So here's some milk with him. See you later. And the Prophet and Abu Bakr are gone. Later on that evening, her husband Abu Ma'bad comes home, and he sees the bowl of milk and says to her, where did this milk come from? She says, well, this guy came, and he did this Bismillah thing, and here's the milk. So he says to her, well, why don't you describe him for me? And this is one of the earlier descriptions we have of what the Prophet looked like. Ma'bad radiallahu anha was an artist. Her canvas was her poetry, and her paint, her brush was her words. And she begins to describe the Prophet ﷺ. And then we have the narration of Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu, and Hind, the son of Khadija radiallahu anha. And then we have the narration of Ali radiallahu anhu, which is a very famous one, by the way. Ali radiallahu anhu's narration is one that everyone should have memorized, by the way. Historically, when a student studied calligraphy, when a person studied art, your examination, by the way, this is the Ottoman method. The Ottomans, when they taught calligraphy and art, in order for your graduation to occur, you had to write the hadith of Ali radiallahu anhu, which is known as the Hilya, right? It's a famous narration. You have to write it out, and then you would be granted your certification in art and calligraphy. So these narrations, they tell us what the Prophet looked like. They describe the Prophet as being someone that wasn't too tall, neither was he too short. He was medium in height. He wasn't so wide that a person would think that he was obese, neither was he so thin that you would think he was anorexic. He had a medium build. His skin wasn't so pale and light that you would think he was sick, neither was it so dark that you would think that he spent too much time under the sun. It was white with a red tone to it. People on a Miami beach are trying to burn their skin to match the skin our Prophet was born with, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he stood, he was humble, yet firm and strong. His feet were the shape of an arc. He did not have a flat foot. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu says that when the Prophet walked, he took longer strides, and we would have to get into a light jog just to keep up with him. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam walked, it was as if he was descending from an elevation, humble yet strong and firm. Every step was meaningful in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you look at his hands, they were soft, according to the narration of Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu, where he talks about him not have touched a silk cloth or a soft fabric that was softer than the hands of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Literally, this means the Prophet's hands were soft, and metaphorically, if you were just to take the mana of the words, not the love of the words, what it means is that the Prophet's hands were so soft, he never struck anyone, he never hit anyone with his hands. During the 27 battles, or 21 or 19, or depending on the ikhtilaf there, depending on how many battles the Prophet participated in. The lowest number is that in the Medina Munawwara's 10 years, the Prophet participated in 19 battles. And that's the most conservative and lowest number. And if you were to take that number, even at the end of 19 battles, his hands are, that's divine beauty. There's no other way you can define that. If you go to a UFC fighter who's fought 19 fights during his career, that dude's face is going to look like a jinn, right? Not that jinns look ugly, but that's the image that we have in our mind. And the Prophet's beauty after all those battles. And the Prophet I'm not going to talk about it. Let's come back to the description of the Prophet ﷺ. His hands were so soft. When the Prophet ﷺ shook someone's hands, the companions say that when you withdrew from the handshake of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a scent that came to your hand. It was a unique scent that came from the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ stood, the companions, they say, وَعِيدَ مَا بَيْنَ الْمَنْكِبَيْنِ وَعَالَ الصَّدْرِ. His shoulders were very broad and his chest was uplifted, which is a sign of being masculine. Between his shoulders in the middle, there was a skin that protruded that had strands of hair on it, which was known as a seal of prophethood. Sawa as-sadri wal-batn. His chest and stomach were in line at the age of 53, by the way. Okay, just to make that clear. We're not talking about the Prophet the day before his marriage at 25, because if we talk about that then, everyone here would be dead in his beauty. He was just amazing at that age. I don't even know what to say, because I don't know what the beauty looked like. We're hearing about the Prophet's beauty after marriage to Khadija radiallahu anha from Hind, right? And after Ali radiallahu anha grows up, and during the migration, he's an old man who's gone through so much. Old in age, but young in his body. The Prophet said a part of his sunnah was to be healthy. That's a sunnah of the Prophet, unfortunately, we forgot all about. We've forgotten about that sunnah of the Prophet. It's a part of the image that we pick up when we become religious. You walk into the store, you're like, hey, I want to become religious. I'll take a turban, I'll take a hair, I'll take the beard, I'll take that long garment there, and I'll take that huge belly too, right? I'm going to need that as a part of my religious image to prove that I'm a religious individual. The Prophet ﷺ, when they're describing it, they're talking about sawa as-sadri wal-batn, a man whose chest and stomach were in line. He did not have excessive hair on his chest. Rather, he had a line that went between his chest and ended right at his navel. He had the neck of a gazelle. The Prophet ﷺ's hair was generally long. Generally, it came into his earlobes, which is known as the jumma. At times, it hung beneath his earlobes, which is known as the limma. The longest the Prophet ever had his hair is when it landed on his shoulders, and this is what they call the wafra. The Prophet ﷺ at times parted his hair in the middle, and at times did not part his hair in the middle. Wasi al-jabin, his forehead was very wide, which is a sign of being intellectual. And on his forehead, because of the heat and climate, sweat was perspired. But the companions described the sweat on the forehead of the Prophet ﷺ like white pearls sitting perfectly next to one another. Everything about the Prophet was beautiful. His eyebrows were the shape of a bow. They were dark strands of hair. His eyelashes were dark strands of hair that were longer. The white of his eye was white and the dark was dark. And when a person looked into the Prophet's eyes, the eyebrows, the eyelashes, the white and the dark, they would be lost in the beauty of the Prophet ﷺ. The companions, they talk about this idea that when you saw the Prophet ﷺ in his beauty, the worries of the day would be gone. They would be gone. You would forget about it all because he was such a beautiful person. There was some innocence in his beauty. His nose was straight, but the lift at the end of it, lahu nurun ya'luhu, and there was a light that emitted from the nose of the Prophet ﷺ. His cheeks did not bulge, neither were they sucked in, they were straight. The Prophet ﷺ's beard covered the upper part of his chest, distributed between his beard and his head. At the time of his death, he did not have more than 17 to 18 strands of gray hair. The Prophet ﷺ generally smiled, and when he smiled, everyone in the gathering smiled, because his smile was so beautiful, it was innocent, and it was meaningful. It wasn't a facade. The Prophet ﷺ's teeth were like white pearls placed perfectly next to one another. The Prophet ﷺ's saliva was a sweetener for the water of Medina Munawwara, and it was a cure for the foot of Abu Bakr and the eye of Ali radiallahu anhu. We can sit here and talk about how great of a person he was, and if anyone sitting here thinks that I somehow give justice to the description of the Prophet ﷺ's physical features in a matter of 5 minutes, you again have fooled yourself, because that's impossible again. I think the brother who was reading the poetry, the last line of it, he was saying, I'm not even trying to remember it. Something about madhi mamduh yazda, right? The one who's been praised by the Lord of the worlds. Kahatum kahaye madhi mamduh yazda. That was the word, right? From Iqbal Azim. Iqbal Azim is a very interesting person. Mirati, right? He passed away in, I think in Karachi, right? And in Karachi, he passed away in Karachi, right? In year 2000. I used to love listening to his poetry. He was blind. He became blind when he came to Karachi, after he wrote his S.A.W. Hussain. So in there he writes, this poem right there is from his S.A.W. Hussain. And in there, this line that he's talking about at the end, it's so fascinating. He's talking about this idea that He's talking to himself. And poets, when they talk to themselves, it's very interesting because that's where they really become intimate with themselves. And he's becoming intimate. He's saying that, how dare you, or where are you in standing by trying to praise the one that was praised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? He was mamduh yazdan, the creator of the world was the one who praised him. So how can you and I ever make an attempt to praise him? The Prophet ﷺ's beauty was important. It was a part of the companions. They understood it. They appreciated it. For example, I remember I gave a lecture once in a community, and I talked about the Prophet ﷺ's physical features. A young man came to me after the lecture, and he said to me, hey, you talked about the Prophet's physical features. Can you please explain to me why that's important? Like, why do I need to know what the Prophet looked like? And then after that, this person, and I respect him, I love the guy. His words are a reflection of me failing my job as an imam and reaching out to him and convincing him. It's not his fault. It's my fault for not being able to reach out to him. And he went on social media and he posted something very interesting. He said in the post, he said that an absolute waste of 30 minutes of my life. How is the image of the Prophet going to make me a better human being? And that's a very fascinating statement. The reason is because it's as if we've distanced ourselves so much from the beloved that we view things of him to be irrelevant. When the reality is, when you love someone, every aspect of that person becomes relevant. The companions talk about the relevance of the Prophet's beauty. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu says one day he was sitting with the Prophet, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the gathering said to the companions, there are three things that have been made beloved to me from the world: fragrance, women, and the coolness of my eye lies in prayer. And then Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, O Messenger of Allah, can I share with you three things I love? The Prophet said, go ahead. He said, the first thing, I love sitting here looking at your beautiful face. It makes me a happy person. Look at that intimacy. And then he says, and I love working all day and taking all of my money and spending it on you. The Prophet grew up without a mother and father, but then Allah gave him Abu Bakr. A mother says something like that. I love sitting here looking at your face, young guy. You're not going anywhere. You're not going to your friend's house. You're going to sit right here in front of me, and I'm going to look at you and smile at you. You're like, Mom, you look like a creep right now. Stop it. This is Abu Bakr, not a creep. I don't mean to take those words into the hadith. I'm trying to explain this idea of, he just enjoyed sitting there looking at the Prophet. And then a father tells his son that I love working all day and spending my money on you. My money is your money. Have you guys heard of that one? My dad used to tell me that every year when I asked him for a present. I said, Dad, are you going to give me a present? He'd say, Rita, my money is your money. I was like, Dad, that's a cop-out. My money is your money is my money, but you still got to buy me a present. And it makes me feel special. So here, Abu Bakr is saying, I love spending my money on you. And the third thing that Abu Bakr is saying to the Prophet that I take pride in, that my daughter Aisha is the wife of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is a very important thing for us to understand. As Muslims, we can be influenced by religions that surround us. Because when you come to America, when you look at the religions of this country, what you'll notice is that either there's an emphasis on no God, atheism, the absence of theism, no God belief, or the importance is on God. You guys understand? There's no concept of a prophet. You look at the religions around you, do you ever hear anyone else using the word prophet other than Muslims? Have you guys ever heard that word being used? No one uses that word. It's a word that's, special to Muslims more or less right now. Nobody, unless they're talking about the concept of prophecies, they'll use the word as a noun saying, a prophet. But the truth is, that concept is something that has become specific to Muslims in our times. And we have to champion that belief again. Teaching our children, teaching our youth, teaching our adults the importance of knowing the Prophet ﷺ, coming to know who he was. Because the more you know about him, the easier it'll be for you to deal with challenges in your life. The easier it'll be for you to navigate yourself through your life. There are so many challenges out there, so many difficulties out there. In the Jummah khutbah, for those of you who were here yesterday, we talked about this idea of difficulties being a part of the fabric of the human being. How we all face challenges in our life. Someone is going through something while another person is going through something else. And in those difficult moments, the best person for us to turn back to is the Prophet. How did the Prophet deal with this? And for those of you who remember yesterday in the khutbah, I mentioned one thing, and I'm going to mention it again so that I can build another point off of that. I'm trying to build relevance with the Prophet here. That's the objective behind this part of the discussion. I shared with you yesterday that a lady who called me and told me about her child with disabilities. You guys remember that? Yeah. She gave birth to a child with disabilities, and then someone from the community told her that the reason why she gave birth to a child with disabilities is because she was punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And that Allah hated her, God hated her. And then she came crying to me and said, is it really true that God hates me? That's why I gave birth to a child with disabilities. So You know this statement of people telling you that God hates you and God has abandoned you and you're being punished by God and that's why you're living a tough life? People made these statements to the Prophet. Believe that. They said that to the Prophet. There was a time in the Prophet's life where he was emotionally going through a lot. He was going through so much. And one person, a group of them, they came to the Prophet and said to him, the reason why you're going through all of this is because your Lord hates you. Your Lord is angry at you. And the Prophet became so sad. He became so sad by these statements. It's because he was a human being. The one thing that we remove from the study of the Prophet is his humanness. It's important that when we read the Prophet's story, we always remember he was a human being. He had emotions. I asked my teacher once, I said to him, Sheikh, what's the most effective way of studying the Prophet's biography? What's the most effective way of studying the Prophet's biography? He said two things. The first thing he said was when you're reading the Prophet's biography, forget about everything that happens in the future. Because if you keep in mind the end of the story, if you already have a spoiler alert, you're not going to enjoy watching that movie or reading that book. So the same thing, when you're reading the Prophet's story, you can't think about the end of the story. You have to lock yourself in that moment. And that's all that matters right now. And the second thing he said is, that put your hand on the Prophet's pulse and then read the seerah. You know what that means? Feel his emotions. Feel his heartbeat. Feel the fear. Feel the sorrow. Feel the joy. And when you can experience the Prophet's emotions while reading his seerah, that's the day that you really started reading the Prophet's life. Because you've teleported yourself from America to Arabia in the gathering of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what our teacher, another one of my teachers told us the same thing. We were studying Sahih Bukhari and our teacher, Sheikh Yusuf Madarasab, in class, he said this. He said, there are two types of students who are sitting here in the class. There are those of you who are here for the knowledge. You will take your pen and paper and note everything down. And then there are those of you who are trying to understand who the Prophet was. They're like archaeologists. You're just trying to get back and try to understand. And for those of you who are from the second group, you'll find a way to teleport yourself 1400 years ago and put yourself in front of the Prophet while the hadith is being read, and you will relive those moments. Putting your hand on the pulse of the Prophet ﷺ, feeling what he's going through. And when these people cursed the Prophet, when they said foul things to him, they had an emotional impact on him. And he became so sad that Jibreel alayhi salam came as a counselor to console the Prophet. And when he consoled him, Allah revealed a full surah of the Quran. Such an important surah. And I want to share this surah with you guys. I have hope that if those of you that are struggling, whatever it is you're struggling with in your life, whatever it is you're struggling with in your life, if you remember this surah, and if you pin it to your heart, all of your difficulties will become easy, inshallah. And I'm sharing this with experience. 1 year ago, I had spinal surgery, right? And for those of you who know me from before, know that I take pride in my physical activity. I got injured because I was a cage fighter, and in a fight, I got injured. So after my surgery, I couldn't move anymore. I was immobile. And I was sitting on a chair in my living room for 3 months. I couldn't go anywhere. If my wife was there to help me do wudu, I could pray. Otherwise, I couldn't even do wudu alone. I couldn't pray. It was a very difficult moment in my life. And I sat there and I asked myself this question every day. Ya Allah, what's happening? I'm a father of 3. I'm a young man and I can't move myself. Yesterday I was throwing people out of a cage and today I can't move my own body. And I sat there and I asked myself this question for 3 months. And as I was asking myself that question, one day I was reading Salah in that chair and I read the surah. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. And since that day, I read that surah almost every day. It was a very special moment for me because it took me to a very dark moment in the Prophet's life, a very difficult moment in his life, and how the Prophet dealt with it and how Allah consoled him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the surah, he said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. Allah takes an oath by the rising of the sun. Because after every long, dark, cold night, the sun is going to rise. Sometimes you may feel like the night is too dark, difficulties are too long. It's too painful, it's too cold, I can't deal with this, my shoulders aren't built to carry this weight. But Allah is saying, وَالضُّحَى, the sun will rise. You're going to pull through it. But remember, after you pull through it, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, the night's going to come in again. This is a cycle of life. There are good days and there are bad days. وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. These days come and go in the lives of people. Some days are good, some days are difficult. And then Allah says, as for the people who hate you and say that Allah is angry at you and your Lord has abandoned you, مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord did not abandon you. Neither was your Lord ever angry at you. But Ya Allah, why am I going through this? I can't move my body. Ya Allah, my marriage is breaking up. Ya Allah, I'm struggling financially. Why? وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. For what your Lord has stored for you in the hereafter is much better than what you can achieve on your own in this world. But Ya Allah, this much? وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. On the day of judgment, when you will see the reward that you've accumulated due to the patience of your petty sacrifices in the world, you will smile and say, Ya Allah, you really came through. فَتَرْضَى. You're going to be happy. Allah says, just tough it out right now. Whatever it is you're going through, trust me, I got you. And Allah never fails. Allah's come-through rate is 100%. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He takes the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a sad man, to a reflective state. And for those of you who are counselors, the principles of counseling are embedded within the surah. A person who's sad, a person who's going through what you may call depression, grief, you have to take them into a reflective state, get them to think. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the Prophet into a reflective state by posing 3 questions. And I'm going to summarize these 3 questions by one statement. The one question Allah asked the Prophet from 3 different perspectives is this the first time in your life you faced a challenge? And I ask that question to everyone here. Is this the first time you're ever facing a challenge in your life? No. You've done it before, you came through, and it's going to happen again. You're going to pull through this. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. You were struggling with your family, Allah came through. You were struggling with your thought, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا. He guided you, you pulled through. You were struggling financially, وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. He pulled you through. Allah always helped you. So if Allah helped you in the past, why is Allah going to leave you today? And then at the closing part of the surah, 2 last commands. The next command Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches the Prophet is that when you do recover from your difficulty in life, be a contributor. Don't run away from the scenario. If you see someone that's behind you, that's struggling with what you struggled with yesterday, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Don't turn away from that person. Don't oppress that person. Be a contributor. If you were the person that stood at the bus stop in the cold rain when you went to college, when you drive by and you see someone standing who reminds you of you that's standing at that bus stop, stop and give them a ride. You know, if you see someone standing there at the back of the masjid walking around who's young, carrying a book bag on their back, and you think to yourself, this person must be a student, must be hungry, don't just walk past that person. Go and give that person $5 and say, hey, you know what? Go have a meal. It's on me. I was at Starbucks a few weeks back, and when I pulled up I placed my order. When I came forward to the window to pick it up, the lady said to me, your order's paid for. I said, by who? She said, well, there's this new trend in the area that people buy their order and they pay for the person after them as well. And these are not Muslims. And I was like, wow, that's so fascinating. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. They've literally manifested this verse. And the last part of that surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches the Prophet, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Be positive, people. Don't be negative. Don't be pessimistic. Don't talk about how messed up you are and how you're being punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be positive. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Be there as a support system for one another. Be there to encourage one another. Be there to give a shoulder to one another. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, out of the many beauties of his life, his character was sublime. And not only was it great, but the companions talk about it. Every person that met the Prophet had some story to share about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam Dhahabi rahmatullahi alayhi, in that same history, the biographical work that I mentioned earlier on, his Seerat, in there he talks about Ibn Sirin. Ibn Sirin, anyone know what he's known? What is he famous for? Dream interpretation, right? Muhammad ibn Sirin was a famous dream interpreter. He wasn't only known for dream interpretations, he was known for many things. He was also a scholar of hadith, also a contributor to the commentary of the Quran. But unfortunately, one of the natures of dream interpretation is that once you do it once, that's all you're known for. Once the Maulvi does one dream interpretation, he loses credibility in everything else. So everyone thinks of Ibn Sirin as the dream interpreter, when the truth is he has so much more to contribute than dream interpretation. So Dhahabi says that Ibn Sirin lived in Basra. Which city did he reside in? In Basra. And he had a mosque where his students would come regularly and benefit from him. In the same Basra, in the same city, down the street there was another mosque, and who was the imam there? Hassan al-Basri. Who was there? I mean, that's quite a tag team right there, guys, right? Hassan al-Basri, Ibn Sirin, these two are giants. For those of you who don't know who Hassan al-Basri is, I'm just going to say 2 things about him. He was named by Omar. He was nursed by the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. Game over, right? Hassan al-Basri is down the street. Ibn Sirin's right here, and Dhahabi makes a comparative analysis between both. He says that these are both unique scholars, they both had great contributions, but the truth is, Ibn Sirin always had a larger number of people attend his gathering. What is he saying? Ibn Sirin always had a larger number of attendants in his gatherings. So he says the reason was because even though Hassan al-Basri, quote unquote, may be considered as the greater scholar, right? Because he was a direct student of Ali radiallahu anhu and took many narrations from him. And I mean, Hassan al-Basri is a giant. Even though Hassan al-Basri, quote unquote, may have been the greater scholar, but Ibn Sirin owned him when it came to people relations, human relations. He says Ibn Sirin had a habit that every day in the afternoon, he would come to the market area and he would meet and greet people there. And his goal would be that every person he met, he had to make them smile somehow. That was his goal. Every day in the afternoon, that was his sabaqah. He would come and meet people and say, you know what, I gotta make this guy smile. I gotta make this person smile. And all the smiles that he made people smile, in the evening when he sat down to give hadith, those people wanted to come and see him smile now. And they would all literally come to his gathering. Every person that talks about their story with the Prophet, they have a very special interaction. And this is one thing that I find magnificent, amazing about the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't just treat communities as communities and individuals as individuals. He found the right balance between communities and individuals. This is a very sophisticated point. But as a leader or as a person in charge, you have to learn to find the balance. You can't just look at individuals. Because if you become obsessed with the individual, you will negate the community. If you get obsessed with the community, as a parent, if I just think of all three of my kids, all three of my kids, all three of my kids, I'm going to forget to realize that each of my children as individuals have necessities and they're going to be ignored. Which means they won't relate to me, I won't relate to them. But if I get obsessed with the individual, then I'll forget that I have to rule them or govern them or guide them as a group. So there's a balance there. The Prophet ﷺ, when he